And good morning and welcome to Williams Island TV. With everything going on with politics around the country, we all know that Williams Island stays out of politics per se. We don't take sides, whether it's Republican, Democratic, or whatever. But there are a number of races going on presently in the county and the city, which we did think was very important for the residents of the island. One of the seats that's up that affects us, obviously, is the commission seat, which will be coming up this year. But there's also a school board seat, and that particular seat is the one that represents our district in the county. And for that reason, we thought we would ask some of the candidates. We reached out to all of them. We have two that will be discussing with us their credentials, why they want to be school board member, et cetera. But we thought because of the demographics changing so drastically on Williams Island and there's so much youth coming into the area, school board would be a very important topic. Commissioner of Aventura, this is our city. This is something that we care about. This is important that we have the right people in office that care about the city. So you're going to meet 4 people over the next 2 days, and it'll give you a chance to discuss with them, see what they do, see what their thoughts are, what their desires are, what their intent is. And this way you can make an informed decision on who to vote for. I preface by saying Williams Island does not endorse any of the people that we'll be interviewing today, but we do feel it's important that you meet these people because these are the people that will be our leadership for the next 4 years. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs is running for City Commissioner of Aventura. He's running against Gustavo Blankman, but today we're here to talk about the doctor. And being a commissioner, or past commissioner, excuse me, I'm a little familiar with what we do. And I guess it must be difficult for you running for commission to say, I want to do better than the last group, because obviously most of the last group you're going to be working with. And I understand the mayor is a dear friend of yours. But tell us first a little about you and your journey and how you went from, he's a dentist, Dr. Dentist, how you went from dentistry to wanting to get into politics.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Shelley for inviting me. It's an honor to be able to reach out to the residents of Williams Island. I believe there's a big distribution, a large reach of who is going to see this broadcast and this excerpt. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. My name is Michael Isaac Jacobs. I'm running for Aventura City Commissioner, Seat 1. It is my absolute honor to do so, and I look forward to the race. As you had said, Bob, obviously politics in Aventura, it's apolitical. There are no party affiliations. So my ascension, so to speak, towards the commissioner level, for me, I'm a family man, first and foremost. I have a beautiful wife and 2 children who are 14 and 9 years old, a daughter and a son. And we've been living in Aventura for almost 20 years and love the city of Aventura. I have become involved with many programs in the city over the years. I run the Aventura Softball League, which plays Sunday morning at Waterways and Founders Park. I've been doing that for about 15 years as the de facto, so to speak, Aventura Softball. They call me the commissioner on Sunday mornings. And I'm also involved in the Community Ambassador Panel, which is the liaison between the police and citizens, as well as some other programs and other foundations that I have taken the joy to partake in for charity purposes. So for me, this is a natural progression because of my passion for the city and my passion to give back, to lend my time, my efforts, my body, my soul towards the city of Aventura that I love to, again, like you said, every commission has a different shape and feel to it. I just want to build and add onto what has been done and bring some fresh, new, young perspective ideas to the commission.
You know, it's interesting you say the word young, because when I was on there, I was, let's say, the grandpa of the commission, but it is a young commission that's there now. It's a much younger group of people, which is wonderful, by the way, because they can relate to what the issues are of today. And I imagine one of the big responsibilities you're going to have is we have 2 schools in the city, and possibly a third. Is that something you want to get involved with? Because I know your daughter is involved with the arts. But having two schools in our city, you'd become a board member. As a commissioner, you become the board member of the schools. What do you think about that? And how do you feel that your involvement would be in that?
So you bring up a great point. We do, and I've had discussions about this topic. We hopefully will have a third school, and we know that's going to be possibly at, where Gulfstream is, and that'll be a huge addition. We do tout our city as having very low taxes and providing a lot of services, but then people come to our city, and then a lot of families cannot get into some of the schools that are great schools. So having that third school will be key. Hopefully that comes through. I do look forward to being involved in the education process. I do feel that there are a lot of opportunities, especially for students at the high school. One idea that I would like to bring is an externship program where kids in the high school who, let's say, want to become a dentist like me, can shadow and see if go to an office with somebody who is an Aventura resident, shadow that person, get some school credit, maybe get a letter of recommendation. And then the whole key here is that when they go off to school and then remember that Aventura residents help them out however they could, that they will come back and open businesses in our city to help with commerce and help, keep the city kind of going. So,
I want to piggyback on that because, first of all, I love the idea. And I actually I've been involved with that. I'm a guest lecturer at the Yeshiva in New York, but I don't bring it up for that reason. I was also part of the board of FIU for a number of years. And one of the things they had was a mentorship program. And what we would do is we would meet with some of the students. I was in real estate, you might be in dentistry, and you would meet with students that want to go into your profession. You'd work with them, but not only would you just meet them that day, but then you would mentor them and advise them along the way. Now, you have to be qualified as to what your credentials are, but we now do that on the island. And we've just started that program where we have a group of people that live here, obviously with great expertise in their field of endeavor, and we help the staff. We have over 300 employees on the island that want to better themselves, want to do more, or lectures to people that just want to learn more. So I think what you're doing is an amazing opportunity, and I think you should really pursue it because these kids never get a chance to see the real world. They go to college, they come out of college, and they say, okay, now what do I do? And it's almost like an internship while you're in school.
Absolutely, and I think mentorship is extremely important. We talked about that a little before we got on camera, meeting you and learning about you, which I'm very impressed with. But yes, there are a lot of, especially at the Don. So for high school, there are a lot of teens that could really benefit from shadowing, from having a mentor, and to teach them. Even someone like myself who went to dental school, you come out of dental school and they don't teach you anything about the business aspect on how to run a practice. And so being around someone who has some experience, I've been a dentist for 20 years and have a couple different offices, is something that could just benefit someone who wants to pursue that career and then make up their mind if that's something that they really want to do. For me, and you mentioned my daughter, who is into the arts and theater, I believe it is so important for our youth of today to do something that they are passionate about and love, because they'll do really good at it in the future if they do love what they do. So
especially if it's better than social media.
Yes, definitely.
Now, an interesting phenomenon is going to happen when you become, if you win, in the fact that we will have a new city manager that starts at the same time as the election. Ron Wasson, who's been with us for quite a while, is retiring, and he's got quite a background. Brian Pegues, who's the assistant city manager, will be taking over. So normally, remember, this is a city manager-run city. The commissioners don't run the city, they vote on policy. Then the city manager runs the city itself. But they depend on advice. So you're going to be coming in new. Do you attend the commission meetings now to get an understanding so when if you should get there, you'll hit the road running, so to speak?
Yeah, first Tuesday of every month. I've been attending for about a year. Unless I'm out of town, I've been at every city commission meeting and some of the workshops the third Thursday of every month. I admire how the meetings are run, but I also am picking up a lot of information, talking to other residents. I've said there's a time when people can come up at the end and for whatever topic is being discussed and give some either an excerpt or advice or some type of feedback on what's going on in the city. I have done that a couple times. So yes, I've been attending every meeting that I can for the last year, and just to get kind of a feel for how things are done and have a very good grasp on how that meeting is run and what to expect if I do become lucky enough to win the city commissioner seat 1 position.
So I have a question, and it's a difficult one for you because obviously you're coming out to the commission. Most people, when they politically go for an office, they feel they can do something the others hadn't done. And of course, we all pride ourselves on thinking, hey, our commission was great. We did a wonderful job. Look at Aventura, no taxes, everything's wonderful, et cetera. You're coming on to that. You've been to the meetings now for a year. You've watched the interaction of the commissioners. You've seen the issues. What do you think you bring to that commission?
I mean, I kind of touched on it before. I think a little bit of a different perspective. I am not a politician, so to speak. So everything is for me. I've tried to stay above.
That's a good thing, by the way.
I think it's a great thing. I didn't prepare or prep for this interview. I just wanted to be authentic. So I think I bring some organic authenticity to the position. As I had mentioned, there are a couple ideas that I had. Another one you had mentioned, social media. I feel, having 2 children as well, that and I make this joke that in 1,000 years they might dig us up and they're going to see our bodies are like this because we're always hunched over looking at phones. So one other idea that I would like to bring is some type of reading program, maybe bring in some local celebrities or people, basketball players that can read stories to youth and then get reading books. So I feel that nowadays I try to read a book a week. I'm reading 2 right now that are fantastic, but I feel that is another thing on the commission, another aspect that I could try to bring in. And then for the commission meetings themselves, I don't feel that it's my job to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, of how the meetings are run. But I do feel that I'm coming in as kind of a different type of candidate who hasn't been involved, so to speak, in those type of dealings. So I can bring an outside, fresh perspective, new ideas to help everyone out, just to enhance and make the city even better.
Well, I agree and I don't agree. And I agree in the sense that you're new coming on and you're not going to fix whatever broken, but we don't know. But yet you come on with fresh eyes. You come on with new ideas of your own. I will tell you, when I first came on, we had a very strong commission. I came on and I knew the city, but it's a learning curve. But you also do, from watching these meetings, and when I go to them now, I see great stuff happen, but I also see stuff that maybe needs a little bit more professionalism on occasion. Maybe there's too casualness on it, whatever the case may be. I think it's critical that you do have your voice heard at some point, not to be dictatorial, but you have a way of doing things, obviously, and you come to it. I relate this to, I work a lot with Bloomberg in New York, and Bloomberg has about 3,000-4,000 young people working in the building, and they're on like 20 floors, and it's an amazing thing, and the average age of the employment is 25. Mm-hmm. And yet, when you go there and you speak to them, I'd say 50-60% of the people that are working in Bloomberg, which is one of the biggest financial institutions for knowledge in the world, half of them never took a finance class. They're psychologists, they're math professors, they could be historians, and they want a different perspective. They don't want politicians. They don't want the same old, same old. And I think that's what happens on your commission. You bring a lot to the table because you look at it as a resident. You can bring life's experiences to make those changes.
Absolutely. And for me, I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor. It's been almost 12 years. August 2nd will be 12 years complete remission. So I do have a different perspective than most, having gone through what I went through. So to answer your question, I have no problem letting my voice be heard. I am not someone who is scared to say what I feel is right. I govern myself by always wanting to do the best for the most amount of people and what's moral and ethical. So you'll see in every endeavor that I've undertaken, all the foundations that I'm involved in, that it is a constant of trying to do good for the most amount of people and to do it in a moral and ethical way. Again, I haven't been on the commission, so it's tough to know the inner workings, but to also piggyback on your point, yes, about Bloomberg, Tesla brings in their salespeople. They have no car experience. And so I can kind of be, akin to that, come in as kind of an outside perspective and force that that can lend a different type of opinion.
And that's important. Is there anything else you want to let people know about you before we say goodnight? But I mean, you have an amazing background. It's amazing the health issues that you've overcome. So you do understand how to overcome adversity.
I do, and I think there are a lot of questions that I get, and thank you for allowing me to kind of add something at the end. A lot of the questions that I get from potential voters around the city are the traffic issue. I just want to let everyone know I cannot solve. There are a lot of people who want to live in the city, and there's a limited amount of space, and et cetera. But I will tell you, I have, over the past 6 months since I decided to run for City Commissioner seat 1 as Michael Isaac Jacobs, that I have gone out to different areas of Aventura, parked my car, and just looked at traffic and looked at proposed infrastructure that they had discussed at commission meetings. And I really feel it's important that development is key, and we all know why. You had mentioned about lower taxes, and there are always developers who want to come to the city, but I believe it has to be smart development that adds definite function and purpose for the city. So that's one thing. I know I can't solve that traffic issue. Another question that I get is, people tell me, if you bring Trader Joe's to Aventura, I'll vote for you. I have contacted Trader Joe's a dozen times by email. I've gone to their Davy store and et cetera, their Davy place, and I've tried. Hopefully we can get there in the future, but that's something that I understand that a lot of people want, and I would love it as well, because I love Trader Joe's as well. I just want everyone to know I'm a down-to-earth, genuine, approachable person. There's no ego involved with me. I always want to do what I think is best for a person like myself who lives in the city. So I'll always be fighting for everyone of all ages, always doing what is best long-term, in the short and long-term. And I have many mentors, as we had talked about, that are on the commission right now that I speak to, who have guided me and I have learned from, and I'm always learning. And I feel that everyone, every day, I have these conversations with my daughter when I drive her to her theater camp every morning, of talking to her and teaching her. And I tell her, I made mistakes yesterday, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes. But I feel as a person, we should all understand that that's going to happen. But we always have to learn every day. You can never learn enough and read enough and find out more about yourself as you get older. And hopefully I'll have the privilege of serving as a city commissioner for Aventura.
Well, we look forward to it. It's been great meeting you. We'll talk, I'm sure, many, many times, but only the very best. I wish you luck. I know it's in the voters' hands right now, but I do wish you luck. And I think, as you've seen, you're a wonderful potential to be a commissioner on this city.
Thank you very much.
Very nice meeting you, and thank you. And welcome back. As we said earlier, today is Politics Day, but nonpartisan. We are not taking sides. Neither one of the people that you're going to be hearing today, tomorrow, or whatever, have anything to do with Democrat or Republican. They're running for races that are bipartisan, and their political views stay out of the race. We don't endorse anyone that we're interviewing. We're here just to be fair, and we thought it's, as I said earlier, a good idea for you to judge and make your own opinions, decide your own opinions by hearing what they have to say. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Geller, who is former state representative of the state of Florida. He has been in politics as long as I know you, and we go back a long time. Joe is now running for the school board. There are 5 or 6 people running against you, I believe.
There's a total of 5, yeah.
5, yeah. But this is one of those critical jobs, because to me, with Williams Island's youth and the programs that we have, your seat takes from Homestead, doesn't it, all the way up to here?
Not quite, but pretty close. It starts all the way up here. It's got Highland Lakes as well, and Sunny Isles. And then it goes all the way down both sides of the Intracoastal, down the beaches, down the mainland of the city. And it goes all the way through Brickell into the Grove. It goes right to the edge of Coral Gables, pretty far.
It is. It's a large state. But the critical component of it is we have 2 schools in Aventura. And I thought what's important is we need strong representation in our area because of that fact. Plus, we have the waterways, we have crop, we have the middle, and we have Ogis. So we in itself, just in the North Miami Beach, Aventura area, have about 7, 8 schools. So to us, it's very important that whoever gets this position is cognizant of it. And one of the questions I'll be asking is obviously because Aventura has 2 charter schools, and there's always been that conflict. I know when Cavallo was the chairman of the school board, he was not in favor of charter schools. But let's go back to Joe for the moment. We'll get into this. I welcome you today.
Nice to be here with you.
I guess the first question I have to ask you, you've been in politics for a long time. Why do you want to do it again?
I term limited out of the state house after 8 years, 4 terms, in November of 22, and wasn't necessarily gonna do something again. It was a good run. Before that, I spent about 10 years prior to that, I spent 4 years as the mayor of North Bay Village. And before that, I was the chairman of the Democratic Party for Dade County for almost 12. So it was a good long run, and I could have been done. But our school board member up here, Lucia Baez Geller, who's married to David Geller, who's, maybe somewhere back in some shtetl somewhere. Okay. They said we had cousins named Geller. We changed our name when the family got here. And why Geller? We had cousins. So it could be. But she decided to leave her post that she got elected to in 2020. She's running for Congress, and I think she's great. But the seat was open, and honestly, I had a lot of people come to me and say, we don't need somebody that's gonna shrink. We need not somebody that'll sit at the end, even if you raise your hand at the right time. We need a voice. We need somebody that'll be outspoken and will really stand up for us. And people asked me to do it, and I thought about it. I have one child, Bob, old guy like me. My daughter went to Aventura Waterways K-8, and you talk about the 2 schools that Aventura has. Yeah. My daughter's a student at Don Sofer Aventura High School. Okay. She's just entering her senior year, so very personal to me and my wife. I mean, she's here. We love that school. What you guys did to bring that high school to us is fantastic. We love the school, but still there's a lot of issues, and so it's a very personal thing. When people said, we need a voice on the school board, I said, yeah, I could step up and do that.
So here's a guy like yourself that's been in politics, and obviously it had to have been difficult. I'm not just taking sides. Being a Democrat in a totally Republican House, and again, I'm not talking politics here, so that frustration must have taught you how to deal with the kind of opposition or the kind of contradiction or the kind of opposition you're going to find down here.
I'd make a speech up there in the legislature, and we're so far in the hole. I'd have Republicans come up to me afterwards, and they'd say, boy, you were really great today. I wish I could have voted with you, but of course I can't.
Unfortunately, that's true.
If 3 people come up and say that to you, even if they had found the courage to vote that way, so we lose by 37 votes instead of 40.
Exactly.
Currently, the school board down here, it's nonpartisan, but everybody knows who's what, and everybody knows who's where. So there are 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats. From my perspective, all I've got to do is find one that I can do some business with, that I can reach a compromise with, that I can find some middle ground. I can say, well, listen, what is it you're worried about? How can we make sure that what you're afraid of doesn't happen, but we don't have a bad outcome? Changing one mind or reaching a compromise with one person, that's a lot easier than being 40 votes down. So I think I could do some good.
I've been asked by some people, you've never been involved with the educational process.
That's untrue.
So that's what I want to clarify, because that's a misnomer that I've heard. He's been a politician, but he's never been involved with education, et cetera, et cetera. Well, clarify it a little bit.
In the House, I was on the Education Committee. I was the ranking Democrat on the K-12 subcommittee. And in fact, I didn't get a lot of things passed because my views were not, as you point out, in keeping. But the one I'm proudest of, I got through a landmark bill that was to fight bullying in the schools. My daughter felt some of that back in the day When she was attending after school, she was always at the JCC. There was some of that going around. I was able to help get through both houses and signed into law by the governor an anti-bullying bill. And I was involved in a whole bunch of different education issues that have to do with the most important thing, how we fund it, how we pay for it, how Miami-Dade County gets a fair shake, which we don't so much. So those funding issues, the governance issues, issues about who would be able to teach, I was very involved in those things in Tallahassee. You know, you don't have to be a classroom teacher to know something about education. And I have kind of the best qualification. I have the daughter, my daughter.
I want to ask you, a number of years ago, the state laid out and put together a fund to give teachers increases. And I understand they're looking to do that again. But during that time, the reason I bring it up is because, unfortunately, they eliminated charter schools. And we had to sue the school board. We have to win. And we got our teachers the money because the teacher's a teacher, whether it's public or charter. But I understand this is possibly going to happen again.
It could.
And it's in the works. Whether it happens, I don't know, but they're looking to get more money for our teachers.
Look, teachers need to be paid more money, but it's not only money, okay? Money's important, but it's not the only thing. A bigger well, maybe not a bigger problem, but equally concerning, we need to treat teachers like professionals. They are. It is a profession. There are skills that teachers have that you and me wouldn't have. You know, you're sitting there, they had something, oh, we're going to bring in the best chemist in town and have him teach chemistry. They may know everything about chemistry, but how you can penetrate the skull of a sullen 13-year-old who wants to be any place but listening to that, that's a skill, and we don't give enough credit to teachers. We need to pay them like professionals, but we also need to respect them like professionals. So let me just be clear. My daughter is at the school that Aventura owns. Like I said, we love the school. You know, they say, oh, charter schools. There's a place for charter schools. Mm-hmm. They have a role. I mean, you can't unwind that. And charter schools are public schools. Yes. I think, though, that instead of saying traditional or charter, when I was up there, I looked at amending the law. There should be a third category. And the third category is municipal-owned schools. It's a different animal. Pembroke Pines has it, Coral Springs has it, and we have it. Mm-hmm. And the point is, when the city owns the school, it's not being operated to squeeze money out of the system into somebody's corporation's pocket. That's so that those of us who live here, who maybe are a little bit better able to help, we can put extra money in the school. It's a different thing.
Yes, and to bring to the point, we are municipal schools in Aventura. And I don't think people understand that even so it's city-owned, it's not a profit center by any means.
Exactly.
The money goes back to the schools.
And more money.
But more importantly, what people don't understand is that a charter school is such as a municipal as we are, they're governed by the School Board of Dade County in terms of the rules, regulations, criteria, standards, everything else.
And by the city commission, which is a good thing. Yeah. So, you know, charter schools are public schools. I have more of an issue, to be honest, with giving money to private schools. I have concerns from my years with American Jewish Congress. I was president for the Southeast U.S. We always fought on the church and state issues, you know. Let's just say our community has always got to be very sensitive to church and state, because if there's a state religion, it ain't ours. So I think it's important to recognize charter schools are public schools. Private schools, that's a different story, including religious schools. If you want to send your child to a religious school, God bless you. My daughter went to a Jewish day school at Temple Sinai for quite a while. But that's different. But to say that we're not going to have charter schools, there's a role, but I do think they have to play by the same rules. And I think, as you say, that the fact that the state has kind of taken away a lot of the control that the local school board used to have, and the local school board should have a voice in how these schools are operated.
So to that point, you come from obviously a Democratic background when you were in the House, and we have a Republican governor, again, non-politically speaking, that has in some instances made changes to school boards in Dade and Broward County to replace certain members for whatever the reason, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong. It's irrelevant.
It was wrong. I'll say.
But more importantly, here you come, you're going to be on, and you're not a mind reader, but however, I'm sure you're not DeSantis' favorite person in the world.
Or vice versa.
Right. So therefore, is there a fear that you get onto this school board and he could replace you?
No. Because he could replace me,
Yes.
but I'm not afraid of it. There's no fear. And the reason I say that is this.
Right.
I've said, kind of half joking, but half serious. If I don't get replaced, I didn't do the job right, because I'm going to go there and I'm going to stand up for what I believe. I believe in democracy. If what I want to do, and I'm trying to be very plain about it, if that's not what people want to see on the school board, if they don't want to see somebody fight book banning, if they don't want to see somebody who's going to fight that we teach real history, I said on the floor of the House when they were debating it, so if there's a German kid in class and I'm teaching Holocaust, I can't tell the truth about the Nazis because the German kid might feel uncomfortable? No. In fact, there's a stronger word than that. I won't use it. But I want to see real history taught. I don't want to see vulnerable kids targeted. And I'm against banning books. I want teachers to have the freedom to teach. If the people in the district, if that's not what they want to see, and they want to vote for somebody with different views, God bless them, that's democracy.
Okay, so
but I'm going to stand up for what I think is right, and the consequences,
Okay,
we'll
so
see.
the question then begs itself, what power does the local school board have, Dade County local, against state decisions? As book banning, I'm just using that as an example. If the state says you're not going to have X, Y, Z, and we went through, because I was commissioner at the time, we couldn't have X, Y, Z. The state, how do you, as a commissioner, fight that?
The state has taken away powers that belong at the local school board.
Yes, we know.
The state has done things it should not stick its nose into. That's why we elect school boards locally. That's why we have our own superintendent locally. We have to stand up against that. And there's two things you can do. Number one, you can speak out. You can change people's minds. You can persuade. That's why I want to run for this seat, because I have something to say, and I think I can persuade people that there's merit to it. And then the second thing is, if you have to go to court to fight over what's the right role of the local school board, all power doesn't go to the state. The government closest to the people is usually the one that's most in touch, and we have to fight to defend local control.
Okay, so changing subject. I want to hear a little about how Joe Geller from a little boy became a politician. Let the people, I'd like to hear a little about your story, your journey.
I'm a Bronx boy. And one day when I was...
hold that against you.
Well, what are you, Brooklyn or something? No. One day my father walked into the house and looked at my mom and said, "Joan, the Bronx is dying. We're moving to Florida," just like that. If he'd said we were moving, I was 11. Okay. If he'd said we were moving to Mars, it would have made as much sense to me. Okay. But that was a long time ago. We came down here, and the earliest I remember doing anything like it, I was in junior high, as we used to call it. It was before middle school. And somehow I wrote an article for the junior high newspaper. And there I was, I guess I was 13, and just around the time of Bar Mitzvah. And I wrote an article about why we needed to control guns. 13 years old. Wow. And so since then, I just have always had an interest in how we govern ourselves. I was a student of history. My dad taught me a lot of history as a little boy growing up, to recite the Gettysburg Address and the preamble to the Constitution. And I've just always been interested as a student of history into, the American experience is so unique, such an exercise in self-government. I admire that, and I speak to that. I mean, this country may not be perfect, and I don't mind pointing out when I think we're doing something wrong, but this country is the greatest country on the earth in terms of letting the citizens have a say in how we govern ourselves, and I've always been fascinated.
But let's go back. You're 13, you write an article. Yeah. You're not in politics yet.
No.
You still didn't take me through the rest.
I was involved with something called the Dade County Youth Council, which had like a couple of select students from every high school in Dade County. Okay. And I went to a meeting. I was on the Government Policy and Politics Task Force. And at that, I was a junior. And at that meeting, I met a couple of seniors. One of them was named Ronnie Book. The other one was named Kendall Coffey. And I met them
it's a duo.
on the same day at the same meeting. And we were talking about what students could do to have a voice in our own education. Talk about being involved in education. And not 3 weeks later, Kendall Coffey was on the phone recruiting me for the Teen Dems, which is the high school version of the Young Democrats. And I joined. And that, as we say, young Jedi, was a beautiful fall day in 1970.
Just to explain who these two people are, Kendall Coffey was probably one of the finest attorneys, still is, in terms of legislature, writing the
U.S. attorney?
U.S. attorney, and he is also represented, believe it or not, Williams Island on a number of occasions, but he's one of the foremost prominent attorneys. Ron Book is probably the biggest and most successful lobbyist in the state of Florida. So,
and we were in the college.
That's who these two gentlemen are that he's referring to.
We were in the college Young Democrats together. Those guys are a year older than me. They're my friends now, 54 years from that meeting. So, you know, from the beginning, I wanted to see what we could do as students. That was why I was in the Youth Council, to help influence education policy so that the students had a voice.
You went to college. Did you study history and politics?
I was a history major, and I didn't as much study politics as participate. I remember when I was president of my chapter of the College Democrats at Florida State, I introduced the speaker, and I said, "The next president of the United States." And my friends laughed and laughed. They said, "Are you crazy? The former governor of Georgia is going to be president? You're out of your mind." And sure enough, Jimmy Carter, there he was. Yeah, so, I was for him. I was for Ted Kennedy. Through the 80s, I stayed involved with that. And I became chair of the Democratic Party in 1989. I had it through the recount in 2000. And to this day, if you watch the HBO movie Recount, there's an actor playing Joe Geller.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And then you went into the House.
Then, well, first I did a couple of terms as mayor in North Bay Village, and then eventually in 14, I finally got elected to the House. Tried a couple times, didn't pull it off the first time, but I'm a stubborn guy, Bob.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a chance to meet Joe Geller. Passionate as anyone will ever be. I've known Joan a lifetime, and no one has more passion in what they believe in.
I feel strongly about this. Our students need a better education. That's what I'm focused on. I want to keep politics out of the classroom. I don't want to bring politics to it. I'm not all about that. I see other things in life. I want my daughter at your great Aventura High School to get the best education possible. But people have tried to politicize this school board to make it something it's not. I want to stand up against it. Let's focus on the kids.
So, in summation to all of this, because I love you to death. This is your flyer. This is what you're going to attempt to do, and obviously it's a job.
Yeah.
What are the most important areas? And to me, I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah,
first.
well, you tell me first.
I believe that cyberbullying, the social media in the classrooms today, and to these kids, it's brutal. What I see, people commit suicide over it. They're emotionally hurt by it. Wouldn't that be a priority to deal with in the school system?
Of
To
course.
figure out how to deal with the dangers of social media?
Well, like I said, I didn't pass a lot of bills, but the one that got through that I'm very proud of was to deal with bullying. You know, before me, they had passed something that said schools had to develop an anti-bullying policy. The problem was they would do that, they'd put it on the shelf, it gathered dust, nobody ever looked at it again. My bill said every couple of years, you have to dust that off. Every 2 or 3 years, you have to take a new look at it. You got to amend it. You got to bring it up to date. And it made principals, who are so important in our system, it made principals responsible for enforcing that anti-bullying policy. Mental health for our kids in general, it's not just bullying is maybe the #1 part of it, but the kids after this, I mean, my poor daughter was shut up inside for 1.5 years during COVID. The kids lost so much. Now, maybe it was necessary. Maybe, you know, some of them would have, if not only them getting sick, I mean, kids are younger and healthier, but not all their parents are if they bring it home. So, but they're behind. We have to help them. Kids are lonely. They're so pressured these days. We need to get away from these high stakes tests that we give them and just focus on teaching them and not always putting them under the microscope. So mental health is a big thing. Access to the books. I mean, book banning, we know who does that. And it's not the good guys who are banning books. We shouldn't be afraid of ideas. Ideas are what kids need to have their minds develop. So, and teaching real history and putting the resources of the public into public schools. And like I said, charter schools are public schools, especially ones like the ones we have in Aventura. They're nonprofit. They're not to make somebody money. That's so that our community can do things for the schools, not take away from it. So when you look at all those things, protecting the kids, taking care of the teachers, we're losing so many teachers. They have classes where the teachers aren't even showing up. They're leaving. We need to treat the teachers with respect and pay them better. Those are all priorities, but it's at the end of the day, just even for us as parents to have rights. My wife said it really well. She's a very smart woman, my wife. She said, I'm for parents' rights, I'm a parent. She says, but don't tell me one parent over there can tell all the rest of us what we can do about our kids in our class. It should be up not to one, but to all of us as parents. So protecting the parents for the good of the kids, keeping good teachers, recruiting other ones, and focusing on real education, which is a passion of mine. That's what's important here. That's why I'm running. And, you know, like I said, I'm optimistic about it, but, you know, I respect the will of the voters. If they want somebody else, that's okay with me. I found I've won races and I've lost races, Bob. And the biggest difference is if you lose, you have a little more time to do what you feel like. If you win, you're a little busier.
Well, Joe, I can't thank you enough. You know, we go back a long time.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, when I was commissioner and Joe would come on the commission and give us a report, our meetings used to go about a half hour longer than you. He's a man of few words, but he has a passion that's amazing, second to none. He's fought adversity, God knows, for the whole time he was probably in the House. But I think maybe we need a little adversity fighting in the school board. I wish you all the luck in the world. I can't tell you one way or the other how the vote's going to go, and nor can you, but I wish you all the luck.
I appreciate that, Bob. Thank you very much.
Thank you.